High school?
Looking good.
All right, we can go back to that. Pull out our phones.
It's boring and lame. Everybody talks the same. There's a point of being that smart. There's a language no change. In 1,000 years you won't recognize it anymore. In 1,000 years to you it'll sunset program.
Hello, this is Marissa.
And this is Jeannie.
And we are coming to you live from O'Dwyer's Pub and Bar. And today we'd like to discuss in brief the introduction to words in our language and how they seem to change over time. So to begin, let's start with a nice definition. According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, etymology is, quote, the history of a linguistic form, such as a word, shown by tracing its development since its earliest recorded occurrences in the language where it is found, by tracing its transmission from one language to another, by analyzing it into its component parts, by identifying its cognates in other languages, or by tracing it and its cognates to a common ancestral form in an ancestral language. Now, this science is not always exact, since the words come and go with trade and war, and Jeannie here is going to touch a little bit on that.
So history shapes a lot of our language in many different ways. We have things such as trade, invasions, occupations, important marriages between different cultures, cultural changes such as new inventions and technology. Popular cultures may add words, change words, or even maybe change the meaning of words.
So that being said, let's go ahead and look at just one word that we all know and love, the word cheese. So a brief etymology of that word is as follows. It's a curd of milk coagulated, separated from the whey, and pressed and used as food. In Old English, it would have been pronounced kaisa. In West Saxon, it would have been pronounced kesa. And my list here shows the Anglican cheese from West Germanic would have been pronounced kajus, which hopefully I'm not saying anything inappropriate there. Source also from Old Saxon, it would be kasa. Old High German is kasa, and then we have kas. And the list goes on, including Italian and Spanish, Irish, and Welsh.
So it's no surprise that the British Isles were invaded by many different groups of people over the years. And with that, every group left a different piece of their culture behind. So, for example, the Anglo-Saxons brought things as a Germanic language, the Vikings brought some Norwegian language, the Romans brought some Latin, and then the Normans brought French and so on. So, but our language didn't just stop there. So here in the United States, we've taken indigenous words, Spanish words, and Creoles from Haiti to the deep south. And with the advent of the internet, our language has endured more hegemonic and evolutionary changes. So it's constantly just changing all the time.
So that's that. This brief little introduction about language and its changes. We want to thank you for listening. We want to thank O'Dwyer's Pub for hosting us today. We hope that you'll enjoy our sit-in session in class.
Thank you.
Bye.
We were supposed to have that to you guys beforehand.
Well, all right.
It's boring and lame.
So that's a good idea to send out like in advance prior to English class.
Yeah, the emails were listed.
That's okay. Yeah. That's quite the map.
Thanks.
I was gonna say, did you draw that? My particular favorite is the three-headed mermaid there in the bottom.
Monster.
Yeah, it actually cut off part of the monster on top. It's very disappointing.
Okay, so I'm doing historical part etymology. So the English language was developed by 3 different Germanic countries. Tribes would be Anglo, Saxon, and Jutes. They all crossed the North Sea to what is Denmark and northern Germany now. At the time, Britain spoke a Celtic language, and with the invasion of most Celts, they were pushed north and west into what is now Wales, Ireland, and Scotland. So during the Viking invasions through Old English was mixed with Old Norse, French language was originally produced for royalty, and Old English was then given to peasants and people of less social status.
It's great when the English king only speaks French. Everybody likes that.
So this map's going to follow a little bit of that transformation of Celts. And we'll do peacefully until they're about to be wiped out, or nearly wiped out.
That's
It's good for them. We're doing it. So 55 BCE, Romans show up, they invade the British Isles to expand their empire, add a little Latin, not just the dance. But also some of the language. And of course, as Jeannie mentioned, we've got the Germans. They also showed up, added that to the language. And we had the Vikings from Norway. I think that was basically it, right? Norway. A little bit of a few Swedish tribes, I guess. But that was about it. They showed up and they added, like Gene said, Old Norse to Old English, changed our language even more. And then, of course, during that period, when the Vikings were invading, the Normans, who were also Vikings, they invaded in 1066. It's called battle, actually. I'm a descendant of that. That's probably why this was eaten. But battle 1066, they changed pretty much everything in England, and again brought that French language. And so in the spirit of that, guys, there's charcuterie, which is just meat and cheese sliced. But,
you don't have to tell him twice.
yeah, the French word is charcuterie. So, what's up, man?
You can fight me for this.
Dive in. Go. Pass it around with napkins.
He's flat out ready to fight.
I'm talking this game, but if my teacher looks like that, geez, I'm gonna die.
No, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all.
It was the spirit of the battle.
He didn't say battle.
He did say battle, that's good. My people lost almost every battle they ever fought.
So some groups that we did, James didn't necessarily really go over the Visigoths, and they were one of the two nomadic tribes known as the Goths, and they were a big part of like the disturbance of the Roman Empire. Vandals, who were primarily farmers who originated in like the Scandinavian area, and they were led by Gunderic, and they take the Roman Empire, and then he died in 428, and then they were taken on by Gaiseric, and that was Gunderic's half-brother, and he became the greatest. You having a problem?
She's vandalizing.
You're doing very well. Keep that.
Someone's like ripping off a Band-Aid on and he eventually became the greatest Vandal king. And then another unique group was the Huns, and they were a group of the nomadic people originally found in Asia who were led by Attila.
So that's actually some really, really great history there. Is there a way to carry the screen as well while I go ahead and start here? How is everyone doing anyways? I know prom's coming up soon. Is everyone excited for senior prom? We have dates, suits, crochets.
Oh, of course
Only
you
person in Leslie was my cousin.
I'll ask you. All right, well, while we're getting our screen put up, I want to have some real talk with you guys just real fast. We did not do so great on our Grimm's Law quiz last week, so I think
You're the quiz.
we're in order here as we're going to do a quick review before going into our next segment, which is the Great Vowel Shift. So the Great Vowel Shift, it's in the syllabus that I gave to you at the beginning of the semester.
Yeah.
My dog.
It was done last semester.
My dog. All right, well, I'm just getting into it. Jacob Grimm is actually the creator of Grimm's Law. He created this theory in about 1822. He wouldn't have considered it a law back in his time. But you might recognize Jacob Grimm more closely as a co-author of Brothers Grimm or the Grimm Fairy Tales. Him and his brother Willem traveled the countryside in South England and pretty much asked the locals, what was your folklore? What was your story that you guys have here in your location? And then he was doing that, he started noticing some phonetic differences in consonants and how they changed, interacted, and were just completely different from each other from different peoples. And so that's essentially what all Grimm's Law is. It's just consonantal changes or consonant changes throughout the tongue. Yay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, so this consonantal shift occurred primarily after the Roman Empire fell to Germanic tribes that invaded and conquered. The beginning, it's like early to mid 5th century. Okay, and during the conquering, Latin native speakers in the area had to interact daily with their Germanic conquerors, and so naturally dialects are exchanged, cultures, phonetic differences are exchanged in transition, and so you get just natural progression change in language. So what Grimm's Law is, and what we failed to kind of grasp on our quiz, is that they're just voiceless stops changing and picking up Germanic aspirates. How's the meat and cheese? The charcuterie, how is it?
I actually got all the cheese, but I didn't know.
Great. Okay, so voiceless stops, which is, if we can retain over here. Voiceless stops are things like P or P, or the most common one that we hear now in modern English would be Qu, which is like WH. You hear it in which, what, where, when. That's actually a legitimate phonetic pronunciation that we kind of lost as we went into our Germanic aspirations. You know that joke, the H comes before the W, your real country, but in fact, it's a real pronunciation that we should be using today. So what's going to happen pretty much is, I'm actually going to put it on the board. I think this is where I went wrong the last time. I didn't show you guys how it works on paper. So Grimm's Law, I'm just going to do GL here. It goes to the VH, which is the voice stop, goes to a B. This B turns into a P, and the P turns into an F. I don't know why that is. For some reason, the Germanic aspirate is F. Another one is D, turns, can you see that okay, guys? Yes. Turns into D. The D, sorry, I can't see very well.
Happens all the time.
The D turns into a T, and the T turns into a TH. Okay, Germanic aspirate, can you repeat that word?
Germanic
Awesome. That'll be on the quiz tomorrow. And then the last one, which is kind of an anomaly, is H into G, G into K again, and then K goes into X, Germanic aspirate. Okay? So when you're using this in actual, like when you're transferring this to actual words, you're going to just locate it on the graph, and then whatever the arrow points to is where you're going to be. So example. We have the word don't, okay? Don't. Excellent. Very good. So what we're going to do is use the D located on here. Where is it? The D turns into a T. Forget about the E for now because we're not dealing with vowels. And the T over here turns into a TH, and you fill in the blanks. This is an anomaly, like I said, but it's T here. It actually turns into an O because it's not a plural word in English, and so you get the word tooth. And you recognize dent as in like dentures. Exactly. Very good. Yeah. So I'd like to have a victim or a volunteer come up, please, and try one so we can get a feel for what it's like. Let's use the word pater, which is Latin root. We have one. Come up and try and use. I'll be right here with you. It doesn't. Oh, excellent! Yay! Give her a round of applause. And victim.
We're good with A for now.
Yep.
T turns to TH. E turns to
You actually will just drop all these now. So father. Pasha. Okay, and that's how it turned into from our Grimm's Law into our Germanic aspirate. I have one more thing that I want to do. B-R-E-G. Can I have one more victim? One more volunteer? No? For some reason points no? Okay. So Greg, the BH here turns into a B.
Oh, no.
And then you have the R that drops down, and the G over here turns into K, drop the E down. What does this word look like?
Break.
Break, exactly. And later when we get into the 16th century, which is with GPS, we start changing and reforming our spelling. Okay, so this is really what it is. That is going to be on your quiz. Make sure you take notes on that Grimm's Law diagram because it's going to be on the quiz tomorrow. Moving on into GBS, the Great Vowel Shift began in the 12th century into the 18th century. Sorry, do you have any questions?
So this sounds very exciting, the Great Vowel Shift.
It's so exciting, actually. This is my favorite time period in English, just because of Middle English and how it sounds. So it started in the 12th century, led into the 18th century. It's about a 500 time period where our language is being morphed and shifted into what it is now. Pretty much what happens is the sounds of long stressed vowels change in articulation. What this means is very simple. The actual formation, the actual structure of the words in our mouth is changing. So, for example, the vowel E, as it is now, before the GBS it was pronounced more like A. Okay? And this happens in the back of the throat primarily. So before the GBS, this articulation of long vowels would happen with the tongue lowered against the floor of the mouth, and your jaw would loosen and drop relatively low. I mean, like considering the space in the mouth, it's a very subtle movement. But then, after the GBS, all of the movements, we call it heightened into the mouth, in the roof, the tongue lifted up to the roof of the mouth, and everything squeezed to the front. Okay, so I want just another exercise. We don't have to go to the board this time. I just want you guys to place your fingers on your chin and say, we're going to go from the modern English to the, because it's just easier, we're going to go from modern to middle. I want you to say the word sheep. And you notice how the tongue is up in the back of the roof, everything's squeezed kind of forward. Sheep versus shape. The jaw drops, the tongue is lowered, and everything is simple. That is the main difference between 15th century Chaucer's Middle English and our modern English now. That's one of the main differences at least. Okay? Any questions so far? Though Grimm's Law, we already have Grimm's Law, they dealt with the consonants. GBS obviously deals with vowels. The Latin-derived Romance languages would have sounded more like this. So instead of sheep, it would have been shape. Me would have been may. House would have been hoose. And consequently, E is at the end, the silent E's that we have now in our language were pronounced as well as A. So shape, she would have been shape, or let's see, Mina. Okay, what was that? Hosa. Hosa, exactly.
Modern German.
Yes, that was, I think it's pretty still the same way. Okay, so very quickly, just to wrap up, how do we know that all of this phonetic nonsense was happening during this time period? How do we have any record of it? Well, actually, our records lie in the literature and the written pieces of work that we have from that time period. Suppositions are based on spellings and letters, rhythmic patterns and rhyming schemes in poetry of the day, and lyrics, and in plays even. There's a lot you can understand based on an author and how they're manipulating their language at the end of sentences. And then the introduction of the printing press coincided with the phonology of the English language, and consequently, because of the GBS, we have a lot of mismatched spelling with pronunciation and the spelling. For instance, goose, excuse me, has a double O, which signified a long O sound, but after the GBS, that dropped, or the O heightened, and it became goose, and you don't spell goose G-U-S. Yes?
So you think the way everyone says everything is going to change again?
Absolutely. And there's, if anyone wants supplemental reading, there's a book called The Mother Language, and it talks about how the languages shift even within smaller spaces, as in like nations. We have northeastern accents, southern accents, western accents, and people say water versus water. So, yeah, absolutely. Other examples? Yeah. So one explanation for the GBS occurring is that after the Black Plague happened and it was done with killing everybody in the area, people started moving to the eastward out of southern England. And obviously, when you start moving to different areas, just like the Germanic tribes coming in, you have just a transfer and exchange of languages, dialects, phonetic tendencies, etc. Another reason is change from French rule to English. The English just wanted to sound different from their French predecessors, and so Maybe if you notice in today's language, modern English or modern French, when they speak English, all of their vowels are dropped to the back of the throat. So yeah, that's really all I have lecture-wise. I'd like you guys to hear what. Sorry. Oh.
Here's the Chaucer.
I want you guys to hear what Middle English sounds like. Because next segment we're going to be
Here
doing Chaucer.
beginneth the walk of the towers of Canterbury.
What?
One with April, with his shoreless water, the roots of March hath passed for the water, and parted every vine in switchly poor, which virtue engenders the fruit. One Zephyrus egg, this sway a breath, in spirit hath at every horse and hath the tenderest prophet, under the youngest son hath in the ram his halbergus.
This is English.
Sounds like Spanish.
Marking melody,
Who is
that
this?
sleep in
How do you know this?
with all the
recited.
to bring them up here in the garages. Then long and forth to go on pilgrimages.
Pilgrimages?
For the second strangers, strongest to fair hours, food in sundry markets. And specially, from every serious end of England to Canterbury, I wonder, the holy, blissful martyr for the sake that am important, one to die for sake.
You have to focus like really
So
hard.
that
I thoroughly enjoyed
is the most beautiful language I have ever witnessed upon my ears. So that is that segment, and Mr. Earn here has some other things he wants to touch on.
All right, continuing on, and building on that, the Normans, they added French to the language, and then the British made their way to the New World, and then we started seeing Spanish influences, indigenous influences, French influences, Creoles, Patois, a lot of cool stuff. That's why we have such a terrific language here, American English. So, moving on from there, I'd like to show you, well, I'll read you a quote from Kurt Vonnegut. How about that? Here we go. Here's a lesson in creative writing. First rule, do not use semicolons. They are transvestite hermaphrodites representing absolutely nothing. All they do is show you've been to college. Now, that's pretty cynical, right? Yeah.
James was the one who suggested a semicolon last week.
Pretty cynical, don't you think?
It's pretty cynical.
I think so.
Yep.
So, go to the module here.
That wouldn't be at all
Show
related
you-
to last week's lesson, would it?
Yeah, why did you bring the semicolon in this?
What? You don't see? Can we see this? No,
No.
it's not good at all. Wow, that,
Stop right, zoom in.
there we go. Yay, thank you for the help, students. Okay, so
Earlier today.
this is what you'll see when you're looking at for the etymology of a word. So I decided cynicism, cynic, right? 1550s. One of the ancient sect of philosophy founded by Antisthenes, I think, from Latinized form of the Greek Kynikos, a follower of Antisthenes. Man, I'm not going to get that right. I'm sorry. Literally dog-like, from Kion, or Kinos, dog, from the Piru, Quan, dog, all right? Now, all right, you're probably not thinking cynic and dog. However, it refers to the sneering surliness of like an angry dog, you know? You know when your dog's in pain or angry, they'll snarl and sneer. So that's cynicism for you, or the root of it.
Is that where canine came from?
Yes,
What? Canine?
canine. Canine, its roots are in that as well. Okay, so words also change. We know that. During Shakespeare's time, a shade was a ghost. you know? And then, of course, we look at shade as a place where the light isn't getting through, right? And now, it's a passive-aggressive attack on somebody. Throwing shade, right? Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, don't do that. Just say what you mean. And then moving on from there, the Aztec word kamal is used a lot, especially in the Southwest. I use it. It's part of. I'm an English teacher, but I use kamal almost every day. I use a kamal almost every day because I eat quesadillas or tacos every day. Yeah. If there's never cheese invented, I would be thin. Seriously, but under the way words are changed, things can come up in our culture when somebody's kind of bothering you, like, oh, what does it mean? What does it mean? What do? You say, Google it, right? Google it wasn't a word. When I was a kid, we would have been like, what are you talking about? Stop. But now, it's a word. I say it. Everybody says it. And so, one last thing, and I know this is mostly anecdotal because it's all pretty present in our lives. Does anybody have any examples of words that we use that come from somewhere else?
Well, like, kind of like the Google thing,
Well, I mean, yeah, or just words that have
like the
entered
shut up.
our culture, even recently.
I would say like how we have Snapchat and then we like turn it into like a verb, like I Snapchatted her. Like that's not, like we kind of created that. That wasn't really a thing. So that's like, but people say it all the time.
Yeah, it's a good example.
I was thinking of words like savage. It's like people all the time are like, that's so savage, that's so reckless. Like,
Yeah.
Kleenex.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're going like brand recognition, Band-Aid.
Yeah.
You don't
Another
say
one.
cloth adhesive bandage, you say Band-Aid.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was
Probably
gonna
want to
say-
say that though.
I was gonna say, probably only those of us who are old remember this, but like late 80s was boucoodles, coming from beaucoup in French, so it was changed to, it's a boucoodle of something. Maybe no one remembers that but me, okay?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't remember it either.
You missed out.
I did, I must have.
Oodles and boucoodles.
Go for it.
We refer to people as snakes.
Yeah,
True.
yeah. There's references to that all over.
Can the teacher add one? So what about the word like bougie? Comes from like bourgeoisie, which is actually just like upper class, like intelligent, or
Now you're bad
yeah.
bougie.
Now you're bougie when you cut your potatoes in half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear people say the
Is
word
that
big all the time. Yeah. No idea what it means.
I've been informed that apparently
Bay?
I'm wig. It's wig is now a thing. My niece has told me this, like it blows your wig off. It's wig. I was like, what? Is this
She's
a
trying to
thing?
bring something back. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, she just said that this is what they're doing now. I was like, that's new.
We say like all the time because a long time ago you would only use the word like to kind of like compare things. Like
Yeah.
this is like this, but now we say like all the time
Yeah.
as kind of even just like a nervous habit. It's kind of like or anything.
Likes the new
Yeah, I go for still.
Yeah.
Mostly.
like yeah, like combine them, like
Saying all the time makes me sound super smart.
Well,
I feel like clueless was. Oh, go ahead.
no, well, like
There it is.
combine them. A lot of times we shorten things, and all of a sudden it's part of your vernacular, even though it's incorrect.
Sorry. And I also think it's like interesting because when you turn in formal papers, even though we say words like don't and shouldn't like all the time, and it's completely normal and people don't really say like should not and do not, when you write formal papers, there's still like professors that want you to write it in the old way, which is like weird because like it doesn't sound right. You know what I mean to me? Because I don't talk like that. Don't talk like that. So it's just like interesting. I wonder if that will shift to being like, oh, you don't have to do that anymore. I don't know, but that is interesting.
And that's a great point to bring up because language always changes. The vulgary, that was a term for people in Italy who spoke Italian rather than Latin during the Roman ages. Okay? And they called them the vulgari because they were speaking a vulgar form of their uppity Latin. And so, again, language changes all the time. Some of you already heard this, but I used to live in the South, right? And I live in Florida, and I actually had to train myself to say alligator again, okay? Because I say gator, and it didn't even occur to me to say alligator. I'll say like, hey, look at that gator. And I'll give you an example. I got corrected recently, that's why this is on my mind. I was with my son at this kids thing, and I said, hey, look, Grant, there's a gator. And this little kid comes up to me and goes, that's an alligator. I'm like, well, not in Florida. Yeah, and then again, a lot of people, especially where I lived, would say, well, in New York and in the South, people would say finna a lot. Finna eat, you know? I'm finna end this presentation right now. So thank you.